In that regard, would you call the roll?
Larry Porter,
Here.
Jack Looney,
Here.
Alan Land,
Here.
Joe Zack,
Here.
Mark McDonald,
Here.
Jerry Atkins.
Here. And the next agenda item is, will someone move to accept the November 21st, 2019's minutes of the last meeting?
I make a motion, we accept.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or suggestions or discussion about last time's meetings? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call then as to accepting that.
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Jack Looney,
Yes.
Garland Land,
Yes.
Joe Zack,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Jerry Atkins.
Yes. Okay, discussion. We have our city manager, Zach Walker, in attendance today. It's very good to see you here. And he has a presentation of overall management and some changes at IPL management, an introduction of the assistant city manager that we'll be working with. And so, Zach.
Okay, well, thank you, Chairperson Adkins and Vice Chairperson Porter and members of the PUAB. As Jerry said, my name is Zach Walker, and I'm the city manager for the City of Independence. It's my pleasure to be here today just to update you on what I think is a pretty important topic to all of us, and that is the management and overall operations of our Independence Power and Light Department. We are really unique and quite privileged as a municipality to own and operate our own electric utility. And I really want to stress the overall importance of that. I mean, that is a unique opportunity, but with it comes a unique responsibility. I think we are all in agreement that we want to make sure that that operates in the most efficient and cost-effective manner. And, doing so means making sure we have the right leadership in place for that. One of the times that I was able to come and visit with this group was a few years ago when I proposed to you an idea in accordance with Section 3.14 of the City Charter, which allowed us to establish the Department of Public Utilities, and along with that appointed Assistant City Manager Mark Randall as the Director of the Public Utilities Department. But I will tell you, it's really a management best practice from time to time to shake up reporting structures. With that comes renewed insight, fresh perspective, new ideas about how those departments could function. And as I've recently marked 3 years as city manager, I thought that really was a good time to reflect on what the departmental reporting structure was from within my office and really take a fresh look at that. So as part of that rearranging of duties and reorganization of responsibilities, I have decided to hand over the day-to-day oversight of the three utilities, water, wastewater, and electric, to my assistant city manager, Adam Norris, who is seated here on my left. Adam's been with the city for just about a year now. Previous experience most recently with the city of Blue Springs, but has also been in Overland Park, Mission Hills, and also city of Dallas, Texas. I think Adam will bring a great deal of insight, accountability, and as like I said, a fresh perspective to that. But before we move on to Adam, I would like to thank Mark for his time overseeing the utilities, and in particular, day-to-day management of Independence Power and Light. As you all know, certainly, probably more so than others, there have been a lot of generational issues happening at Power and Light the last few years. What the future of power production is, looking at our rate structure, and Mark has been in the thick of that and really fashioned himself a subject matter expert on that. My knowledge of electricity ends at how to turn the light switch on. Mark goes a little bit deeper than that. So, Mark, I do want to thank you here today publicly for your service over the last few years in that capacity. So at an upcoming council meeting here at December 16th, we'll have an ordinance that will transfer the Director of Public Utility responsibilities to Mr. Norris, and we'll get him off and running on that. However, I envision Adam's role being quite a bit different than what we asked Mark to do. We really had Mark down, day to day, managing, overseeing, operating Independence Power and Light. That's really non-traditional for an assistant city manager to do. Most of the departments, in fact, all of the departments that the assistant city managers oversee, they're more checks and balances, providing insight, providing feedback, but it's the department heads that manage these things day to day. So accordingly, there's going to be two significant changes that come with the new reporting structure that I have. One, so that we do have day-to-day management, day-to-day responsibility, and certainly, accountability. I am tapping Independence Power and Light employee Jim Nail as our acting assistant general manager for the electric utility. Jim is currently one of the NERC Reliance coordinators for the city, but Jim has a very robust background, particularly with a leadership slant. Jim is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. He's a 12-year employee of Power and Light, but prior to that, Jim was involved in combat missions overseas where he not only commanded operations but also provided training to the Afghan forces as they began to take over more responsibility there. I think Jim will provide a steady hand, respected by his peers, a great deal of subject matter expertise, and will be that important liaison day to day for the electric utility. But in order to really provide, the most robust management we can, recently we issued a request for proposal for management services for Independence Power and Light. And the way I see that working is really to provide three key deliverables. One of those is day-to-day on-site management of the utility, probably within an 18 to 36 month period, some time span within there still to be determined, but that's generally what I'm thinking. Second deliverable would be really to come in and get a handle on the financials, on the performance, to ensure the most appropriate cost-effective operation for the utility. Section 3.17 of the charter mandates that we run this like a business. I can think of no better way to do that than to bring in an actual business to help us begin to assess and establish best practices for the electric utility. So that proposal closed on November 21st. We received 6 responses from across the country, literally from both coasts and in between. I have established a review committee that will be evaluating those over the next several weeks. As we begin to zero in on a recommendation, we will certainly come back to this board, present those findings to you, get your input prior to taking that to final approval of the City Council. My goal is to have that firm here on board providing those management services no later than February 1st of the coming year. So that's kind of an overview of where we're going. We think this is very innovative and certainly outside the box, but I think it's going to take that kind of thinking to get the electric utility to the place that we all as citizens and ratepayers of this community expect it to go. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Any questions? Well, Zach, I'd like to thank you for your leadership and all that you do for us. And Mark, thank you very much for steering us through a lot of times this last year when we weren't necessarily lost, but certainly fumbling around. Yeah. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And Adam, thank you for accepting this responsibility. You might want to think again, just before it all becomes official. So welcome to you.
Thank you.
Is Jim here?
Jim is here. Yeah. Okie doke. Anything else for Zach? This is your time. We've been saving up for this. Yeah.
In your review of consultants or however they in there, is consideration given to the applicants that would have experience in public utilities rather than IOs?
Yeah, within the proposal itself, there are different weighted criteria, but one of those is relevant experience. And I think relevant would certainly rate higher for those who have either worked directly alongside or for public utilities. And I can tell you we received several of those, which was very encouraging.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Larry?
Yeah, I got one. Zach, what would Jim's be to the consultants or whatever?
Right. So I think that, as you know, there's a tremendous amount of day-to-day signing off on purchase orders, personnel management, issues of discipline, issues of hiring, promoting, payroll issues, things of that. But I think Jim's breadth and depth of knowledge will also help provide a guidance or some insight. These consultants will certainly, hopefully, have had some sort of public utility experience, but they won't have had Independence Power and Light experience. And I think Jim can be that primary point of contact who can help guide and direct them to
Sort
the
of a
different aspects.
liaison.
Yeah, a liaison, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate your service too.
Will Jim be watching over overtime, or that's the new guy's responsibility?
So as you know, at the council meeting this past Monday night, council adopted a resolution that came as a recommendation from the Audit and Finance Committee, a subcommittee of the City Council. Mr. Toma Perry, who's working on a robust audit of Independence Power and Light, felt it was important prior to his audit coming out that this issue, really rose to the top to take a deep dive look at overtime, particularly use of exempt overtime within Independence Power and Light. That will involve people from across the organization. That will involve our human resources director, our finance director. That'll be a multidiscipline team, Jerry, that I think will be needed in order to make sure our practices are in line with our own personnel policies as well as the federal labor guidelines.
And when are we expecting his report?
I believe the management analyst and I are meeting about every 2 weeks on that, and I believe if we're still most relevant on our conversation, we expect that report within the first quarter of 2020.
Hopefully by January 31st.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay. Anything more from you?
Nothing else.
Anything from the board? Here he is, and we got him cornered. We just as well. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Zach. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a report on liability issues for the board members, and Sarah's going to lead us through that.
Yeah, I got the question that the board was concerned about their liability when it comes to errors and omissions of recommendations you make here. The city does have a public officials liability insurance policy, which does cover our city elected and appointed members of our boards and committees. And that insurance policy would cover any acts the board would do that's within your scope of duties, your official duties, which are laid out in the charter. If you go outside those duties, obviously that policy would not cover you. And some examples would be, some sort of fraud, criminal acts, that sort of thing. So as long as you act within your official duties as provided by the charter, our policy would cover you. Any questions on that one?
Yes, thanks. Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion to bypass the next two and move to number 5 because it'd be covered in what she's talking about?
Sure. Any objection to that? Then go ahead.
Sarah, I was approached by a news media after a council meeting. Somebody told them I was on a board, and I told them I didn't know what they were talking about and walked away. What, or maybe Zach can answer this too. What is our status on us saying anything to the news media?
Yeah, I'll go first. Obviously, you're a volunteer here at the city. You can talk to whoever you want, say whatever you like, but I don't think there's any liability, or at least I don't know, it depends what you say. Obviously, if there's a confidential information that you are kind of going to be held to a different standard than a normal public Joe citizen. But I mean, as far as you'd have to give me examples of what you might say, and then we'd see if that's within your official duties. But just know the insurance policy that we're talking about, the public officials liability insurance, it only covers acts within your scope of your duties, which is laid out by the charter, which does not say talk to the press freely.
Well,
So,
I would not be comfortable as a board member
Yeah.
if another board member went to the media and spoke as a board member.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I guess, personal.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have the authority to speak for the board.
Well, it's not. Yeah, you can't speak for the board. A singular member cannot speak for the entire board.
Right.
But if you want to, I mean, you can't. You can say whatever you like. It's a free country,
Well,
right?
yeah, I
But-
understand that, but it seems like with the news media, as soon as they find out you're on the board, you're speaking for the board.
Right, and that's
That's the way the media perceives
Right.
it. And I don't think that's proper. I don't know. Maybe you can expound on that, Zach, what you're feeling on it.
You might be the first person who's ever asked me about my feelings, Larry.
Nothing personal.
No, feel special. We at the city a few years ago, we added back the position of public information officer, and we really did that because a city of our size, we carry that level of sophistication. What we encourage our staff, in fact, what we often direct our staff to do is if you're contacted by the media, make sure you refer it back to the public information officer first so that we can discern appropriateness. Is that something we're able to provide feedback on? Are we providing a consistent message of what the city's message on an issue is? Certainly we encourage our elected officials to do the same, to be thoughtful about that. And I guess I would just ask that, in that similar vein, that maybe the volunteer boards and commissions remember that is a resource that is available to you, to contact that public information officer, let them know you're being contacted, and then make some informed decisions from there about how best to proceed. She can provide quite a bit of guidance and insight about how best to proceed from there.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, that's helpful to know that as a volunteer and a person on the board that we could approach her and use her in that way. I didn't know that. Thanks for that.
We don't have to do number 5.
Okay, so we don't have to do number 5. Okay, moving along then, we have a rates design presentation, and Robert Stillwell will do that.
It's actually not a presentation, it's an update of where we are. Currently, we are working to finish up trying to establish the new residential rates that meets the PUAB board and council's request that with 6% and all that stuff. I'd like to say it's a nice, easy thing to do, but it's a challenging thing because it's just not a simple, easy thing to do. Residential is a little bit easier than commercial. But basically we're going through and taking what our rates are now, what it is calculated to 6%, and then we're using the information that we've got from Burns McDonald and modifying it so that we can use that foundation where we'll have the customer charge, we'll have an energy charge. Obviously we'll have the PCA, but that'll be set to 0, so it's not relevant in this part, but to where we can come back and show you graphically that depending on your usage, you should be getting at least your 6%. We're also trying to set it to where nobody gets a huge discount. Somebody might get, a 20% discount or something like that over our current rates. We're trying to balance so we can get everybody in that 6% range. Some will get more. Just depends on the way the formulas and the consolidation lie, but that's where we currently stand. Our goal is to try to get these done. Our directive is to get it done by January. That's what we're working to do with the holidays and with vacations. It's a challenge, but we're working constantly every day, evaluating and trying to get this so that we can get it forward to the PUAB for your review and approval, and then we can get it to council. So then we can once we have it approved, take it forward and go forward and set them up into the billing system to be installed. So that's where we stand.
We're not ready yet.
No, I wish I could say that we are, but
Wish you could too.
yes.
Question, you said 6% range, And what we've been talking about is 6% overall.
Right. It's 6% of their bill. And I say in the range of 6%. There will be some customers that get a slightly higher discount, based upon the new rate structure and the energy use and the volume they use, things like that. But we're trying to make sure everybody at least gets their 6% in comparison of their bill, based upon usage and all that.
Okay, this board and the city council have directed that it be 6%
At least.
across the board.
Yes.
Okay, so, and you're still talking about might be some higher and some might be lower.
You shouldn't. We're setting it up to where nobody will be lower than 6%. There will be some because of the way I would say the linear line and all that in the consolidation would potentially get higher. We're trying to make sure that we don't have somebody getting some astronomically large discount as compared to where they were. Get it into the 6. I would say our goal is to get everybody in the 6, maybe 8% range or so.
So you can't take that person that
has the high percentage.
yeah, and
We're
just
working-
lower it by 6%. You can't do that.
We're trying to set up our rates so that you're established, so you don't have to. The one thing that we're not going to do is say, this is how your bill was calculated, this is how the rates are, and compare. We're trying to set it up to where the new rates will produce at least a 6% discount. And what we're trying to do is if anybody has, for example, if in some of the Burns McDonald stuff, the higher end usage, they were getting a little bit higher discount. We're trying to work to, if you have the higher usage, maybe you don't get as much of a usage, so that we can make sure that we give the people that had the lower usage, to ensure that they get their 6%.
Okay.
But the
further
goal
questions?
and the requirement is at least 6%.
Yeah, that's right. As you know, we're trying to do two things at once. One was the 6% rate cut, which we did across the board. Then there was the idea of trying to consolidate rates and simplify them. So whenever you take a couple of different rates that have and condense them into one, there would be some would get more and some would get less. And so what was presented by Burns and Mac was a 6% average. The council said, no, we need to go back and make sure that there's a minimum of 6%. So that's what he's trying to say. I think you're on the exact same page. The minimum will be 6%, but then we'll have to make sure that by doing that, it doesn't make somebody get a 10 or 12% just to try to make sure there's a 6% minimum. So they're recalculating this to try to make it all come out, and they just aren't really ready as we thought to have it for you today. So he just wanted to give you an update, and then in January we'll come back with the actual rates that will have a 6% minimum and yet be consolidated.
Okay, it's not possible just to take people's bill and reduce it by 6%.
That's what we've currently done, and we could leave it in just that way and do nothing. But that doesn't accomplish the other goal of simplifying our rates, consolidating rates, and things like that. If we want to just do it, everybody at the 6%, we can leave it how it is now that everybody's currently getting their 6% and call it done. But what we're trying to do is incorporate the customer charge and things like that and simplify our rates so that we don't, we go to one, maybe two energy rate blocks as opposed to 5 to 7 different energy rate blocks. So it'll be easier to calculate what your bill is. So we're trying, that's the challenge. If we want to just do everything at 6%, we leave our system how it is and walk away. But the goal is to also consolidate our rates and to simplify our rates.
Okay, so the mandate from this board and city council was 6%,
Yes.
but you're working with the information that was from Burns and Mac having to do with different categories.
Yes. We took their information as a foundation and we're building off on that. We're not using their rates as they have, they put together and all that stuff, but we're using that as a foundation, as a starting point, and then working for that to make sure that everybody gets their 6%. Because under the Burns and Mac structure, not everybody would have gotten their 6%. Some would have gotten 3% and others may have gotten 10%. So what we're trying to do is take what they did as a foundation and consolidate it and put it to where everybody gets in the, at least the 6%, but not anything well above, 6%, 10% as best we can. I wish it was a nice, simple thing to do, but it's a mathematical challenge. Algebraically, statistically, there's a lot of different considerations. So it's taking a lot of their time and getting the data out of the billing system. So,
Okay, our next meeting is January the 16th. Will you have your report by then, or will it be February?
in discussion with the people that are assisting us, they're saying they hope to have it by mid-January. It's probably the end of January when they want to do it. My goal is to see what we can do to get it as fast as we can, because we need to get it done and be done with and move on.
So if we put you on the agenda for February, our February meeting, that'd be sufficient?
At February meeting, and I would even potentially, yes, I would say yes, we should be sufficient on that. My goal is to try to get it sooner.
Mark?
Well, we are tentatively putting it for a council study session at the end of January. So we would, if that works out, maybe we might even talk about a special meeting, since you'd like to see it before it goes to that study session. But we'll be able to answer that question really better in not very long. Certainly February, but maybe we could even get it done in later January.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think just when you're there, notify her and put it on the agenda as soon as possible, as you said.
Right. As soon as we get the
I
information.
think that's the simplest step to go by. I have one other question. Dan, is this going to affect billing?
Once they determine the rates, then they will run those through the billing system and they will check them, and yes, but it shouldn't. I mean,
Shouldn't be any problems?
that's why we
That's what you said.
it should have problems.
It shouldn't. And one of the things, the sooner we get it done, the more time we have to test it to make sure that nothing's going to break.
We're going through that right now, is testing the new. Every time you make changes to the billing system, you have to run parallel.
Can we test it on more than 100 people, please?
Oh, I trust me. We'll be testing it on, thousands of people, and we've got a way to gather information out of the system, and my goal is to set these in the test billing system, where we could upload the same billing cycle, reads and all that stuff, and apply it.
Okay.
So that we have the testing system. The rates will be in the test system, so we can see how they are and evaluate that.
Well, I'm sitting here and I see since the last time I saw you, you got more gray hairs.
Okay. Yes.
And I didn't want Dan to get any more. So, thank you.
Any questions of Robert? Nope. Okay, thanks so very much. Appreciate it. We'll be looking forward to your next report with great anticipation. Okey doke. Mark, would you talk to us about the turbines?
Sure. Since our last meeting, and I brought up several issues about the transition and very much behind closing Blue Valley plant. And I applaud the efforts that the City Council has taken in that regard. I just want to bring it up that I have some real concerns about the analysis that was performed on continued use of the combustion turbines that we currently have. We have 6. In that document, it says that it's reached the end of their economic life, and the age of the equipment has already exceeded what that economic life should have been. So I'm not sure what level of confidence the City Council or IPL should have in relying on the combustion turbines for a regular source of energy in the future. The second thing was, of the 6 peak combustion turbines, that's what it's labeled, peak combustion turbines in the analysis, 4 of the 6 are oil-fired or oil-fueled. And I thought for sure that we'd had more that were natural gas. The other 2 that were remaining are oil and fuel and natural gas fuel. So I can see maybe we should look at retiring the 4 oil-fueled, because I really don't know how often we really bring up the oil-fueled combustion turbines, and go down that road. But it's still very concerning to me when you look at the analysis. How much can we really expect the combustion turbines to provide long-term energy needs? Is it 24 hours a day? Is it less than 24 hours a day? And that really is one of my concerns also. The other thing that really stuck out for me is in the analysis, it showed that we're going to need $10 million for O&M for this time period. I think it was 10 years, right? I think 10 years. And first, we're assuming that the equipment will last for 10 years. We just now spent, I think, $1 million to do an inspection on a combustion turbine. And that's, I don't even know if we've got the results back, but that's without doing any work at all. So you don't have to be a real expert, because I'm not an expert in this area, to determine that the first $1 million before you even get started with the project is going out just to inspect it. So I have real concerns about the condition and the quantification of what Burns and Matt came back at saying that we can rely on the combustion turbines. The projected staffing, that's something that really stuck out for me. And I made it very clear during the last meeting that we even got it down that we were going to have one storeroom person that we needed to have just for the combustion turbines. We needed 4 people that do nothing but engineering and management of the combustion turbines. 23 people. You know, if you look at it, we've got 40 people out in production that run Blue Valley and the substations and the combustion turbines. So basically what we're saying is we're going to need to keep 57.5% of our current staffing to run the combustion turbines, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. And that is probably the biggest issue I have, is that the rationale for the city council thinking that that's going to be a good idea. So with that in mind, and my analysis that I did, I'd like to present a motion that per Independence, Missouri City Charter, Section 3.169, the PUAB is submitting this motion to eliminate energy production within the Independence Power and Light enterprise as a recommendation to the City Council. This would include discontinuing the current combustion turbine operation and begin seeking out an alternative solution for our energy needs within constraints of the SPP regulations. This would include potential purchase of energy or purchase of capacity, however we need to do. I know there's a lot of rumors going around that we want to select a certain place and do a certain thing. As an analyst, all I see is we need to find a way to meet the requirements that we have with SPP. And I could really care less how we do it. Hopefully the most cost-effective way to get there. But that's really what I'm asking us to look at. I'd also like that if this is approved, that we would give this to the subcommittee on rates, rate committee, to look at this issue and maybe come up with another alternative.
Are you still on the motion?
No, my motion's done. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Forgive me.
Let's discuss it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a second for?
We got a second?
No, I wanted to just add something to that.
Well, let's wait till we get a second. If we do.
I'll second it.
There we go.
I'll discuss it.
Okay, now let's have the discussion.
We have this in writing. I need to have it.
There you go.
I think everybody will see it in writing.
I think they will. If it isn't a waste of time. And
Okay.
I just want to bring up something more. You brought this
Go
up.
ahead.
It was you mentioned it's a peak combustion turbines, and this is all they are. They're peakers. They don't sit there and run all day long. So they only use them at peak periods. So we're putting a lot of money into something that we use once in a while. I mean, that's
If there's a question, their main function, as Mr. McDonald mentioned, was their main function is just to satisfy our capacity requirements for SPP. It doesn't matter whether they produce any energy at all. It's just that we run it when we're we bid in and run it when they're going to buy the energy that we do produce. They buy it. But their main purpose is just to satisfy that capacity requirement. And all we were saying is in that presentation that was made here at the last meeting at the city council was that we 100% agree that they're not a long-term solution. They're nearing the end of their useful life. But all we were merely saying is that they could be nursed along for a couple of years. And the reason why you might want to do that is that the cost to replace 90 some megawatts of capacity is more expensive than you letting those machines, even if they don't operate, satisfy our capacity requirement at this moment. So what you might want, all we were saying is that wait a little bit, let's analyze this, because unless you are willing to spend several $1 millions in the fund balance towards a replacement capacity, then you will spend more for the new capacity than what it currently costs to operate the CTs. And that may be a choice that the council decides to make. But all we were saying at that presentation was, let's not be hasty. Let's review this. Let's analyze this from every angle. And I agree with you that the rates subcommittee of the council is the perfect place to vet this all out and try to come up with the path forward.
I guess my only concern, and why I'm bringing this up, is that because the presentation was made, that there's some assumption that that's really the direction we want to go. And what I'm asking us to do is we need to step back and say, is this really the best thing that we should be doing with the funds from IPL? And hopefully with the subcommittee having their eyes on it to see what's available and what's not available. I just don't want us to spend bad money going out and for a piece of equipment that may or may not make it a year, 2 years, 3 years. So I'd much rather us have a much longer term approach, whether it's 3 years for capacity or 5 years for capacity. That's not an issue for me. All I know is I was very concerned about the analysis that we were presented on that area. I had no problem with the Blue Valley side, but this combustion turbine thing was really, it makes me question who wrote it. I know we say that Burns and Mack wrote it, but I have some real concerns with that.
Well, like I said at that last presentation, about the 23 individuals that were left, that was just their number. Their actual number would be determined by the facts of operation. It might be less than that. We don't know what that number is, but that's the number they had in their report, and that's why we referenced that number. All we know is that no matter what we do, the cost to replace that capacity is going to be will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million. And that's just regardless of which options you go.
Well, I think we have the time right now. Once we close Blue Valley, we still have the combustion turbines that are out there. I think right now is the time that we further analyze what we do with those combustion turbines rather than just automatically assume we're going to keep them there. We're going to be going through transitions with movement of employees. This is the prime time that we need to be consolidating all those efforts at the same time.
Well, I think your conclusion is the same one that we were trying to present when we had that presentation before this group and the council, is that they're not a long-term solution. We've got to come up with a plan to replace them. Right now, they're probably the cheapest thing you can do right now to satisfy your capacity requirements as SBP, but it's not a long-term solution. So I think we agree with you that we need to analyze, we need to study how we are going to replace them. I think I agree.
On your last meeting, you're actually going to agree with me. Why? You wait till the last damn meeting.
Yeah. Mike.
No, his.
I went back and looked at the presentation from the staff, and the staff recommended that we keep these as Mark indicated for a couple of years, and they looked at benchmarking keeping them as opposed to the alternative, which was going with Oneida, and the cost differential was a 12% cost differential, which was $47 million versus $53 million. And we're talking just a couple of years, as I understand it. So I think it's really premature for us to pass this motion now as to waiting for looking at, especially when we have, as Zach says, we're bringing in a new firm to look at alternatives of how to save money. And we're saying that we know better than the professionals, our own staff, and this new firm coming in to look at how to save money, that we as a PUAB know best. I'm not saying that I know what's best in terms of that I know best than our own staff and the new firm that's coming in a couple of months. I think that, we've prided ourselves in the past couple of years that we have always gone with our staff over some political decisions that have been made that cost us in millions of dollars. And I don't want to go against that for the very first time as a PUAB and saying that we now know better than other people and that because we've been very good on the side of the angels as far as I'm concerned, and when other decisions have been made. So I'll be opposed to this because I think that we can wait and let the professionals make the decisions and look at that, and then let them come back. And if they say that there's better options on the table, fine. But for right now, I think the staff and our new professionals coming in can give us the better recommendations.
Any further discussion, Clark?
I guess I'm not sure that we're already meeting the conditions of this motion.
I'm sorry.
I said, I believe we may be meeting the intent of this motion. I'm hearing like in 2 years, 24 months, we're going to start considering very heavily elimination of the gas turbines. Is that roughly where we're at?
I guess it's just we were just trying to ask the council not to do it immediately until we evaluated it. If it took less than 24 months, that'd be great, but I threw that out as a couple of years would be, I think, helpful to sort of get, it'd be up to the council. They haven't set any time frame. That was just my suggestion, waiting a couple of years.
The analysis was actually for much longer than just 2 years.
Right.
And what my motion does is set a direction that we start looking to look into this option rather than waiting for 10 years and us spend a chunk of money inspecting, replacing, repairing, and having an incredible work staff really not being fully productive. That's my whole thing is because what my deal is. I'm trying to reduce rates any way that we can, and I see this as a great opportunity to do just that.
I don't think anybody's saying 10 years, Mark. I don't think anybody's saying that we're going to keep these.
Did you read the analysis?
Yeah.
What did the analysis say?
It said that if you kept them for 10 years, the cost benefit. But I don't think
you just now quoted the cost benefit.
I don't think anybody has said that we're going to keep them for 10 years.
Well, that wasn't part of my recommendation on that presentation. No, it did say in that report. I think it even said that if you were willing to invest enough, they could last 20 more years. But that would be like, wow, you really have to invest a lot to do that. I think they felt like you probably could nurse them along for 10 years without any problem. It's just that, again, it becomes a diminishing returns the more you invest in them, which is your point. And all I was getting at is that we really don't even have to invest much to have them satisfy our capacity requirements, and therefore we have time to to study how we're going to replace that.
Yeah, and, my motion doesn't have a time frame on it.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. Other members, there's no time limit on this, and the analysis. All Mark's doing, is this is our recommendation for you to consider in your analysis.
Yes.
Okay? It's not saying go shut them down right now. It's telling you when you're analyzing this to take into consideration what this board feels like if it approves, which that's all it says.
But I guess it's saying that I remember Councilman Huff talking at some meeting that we should always consider that we should have some type of generating capacity. Now, what this is saying that we're never going to have generating capacity in the city of Independence because we're going to get rid of them. We're never going to keep generating capacity. Now, I mean that is a policy issue and so that is a strategic decision that we're not going to have generating capacity. And I don't know that I don't know if that's good or bad, to tell you the truth. But I don't know that I want to make that decision right now. I think that takes a much larger discussion than just voting right now. I think that is a huge decision to make if we want to have generating capacity or not. I think that is a huge decision. And for us just to vote in next 5 minutes, if we want to have generating capacity, I'm not ready to make that decision and make that recommendation.
You sure that?
So that's why I'm going to vote no, just on that very issue alone. That's my position.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, again, you don't know that after the analysis, you're going to say we're going to keep 2 turbines.
Right.
You don't have any idea. All we are suggesting and giving you are, without Garland's vote, or my vote, I'm for it, that in the analysis, you're going to consider our motion and our recommendations in the minutes of what needs to be done. Is that right, Mark? Is that the way you understand it?
Yeah, and as I see this, it's an issue to get the ball rolling, to get it to the council and get it to the administration to determine and look at. It's the first step to get it moving. Anything else?
I call for a vote.
Sure. Are you saying that
Mike, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to
Clarification on Mark. Is this motion to eliminate the turbine engines?
I think that's what the motion says, yes.
So that is the motion, that we will eliminate all the turbine engines.
Based on the
So it isn't just eliminate 1 or 2. It's eliminate all of them.
it needs to
I'm
go
not
to the
saying-
committee, and they may decide that it goes down to 2. We really haven't. This is very similar to the motion I made several months ago, asking for an analysis, which we never got, for shutting down the CTs and eliminating the positions, and seeing how that would roll out on that same analysis that you just now quoted. That's a 10-year period, and then you say, well, that's not really what it is. I just want to know what it really is, where we're headed, what direction we want to go, and what's right for IPL. And you know as well as anybody else on this board, we've made decisions, not we, the city or IPL made decisions that we're now having to back the truck up. It's very clear that we're having a management firm come in here to help manage it. We've had the audits. I want us to set the path so that we're doing the right things for the ratepayers. And right now, with that analysis that we received from Burns and Mack that was presented, there were so many issues with it, I didn't see us going in the right direction. And based on what we were received, the documentation, that's where the motion came from. Pure and simple.
I call for a vote.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, Mark, would you reread the motion so that we clearly have it before us?
Per Independence, Missouri City Charter, Section 3.16.9, the PUAB is submitting this motion to eliminate energy production within the Independence Power and Light Enterprise as recommended as a recommendation to the City Council. This would include discontinuing the current combustion turbine operations and begin seeking out alternative solution for our energy needs within the constraints of the SPP regulation. This would include potential purchase of energy or the purchase of energy capacity.
Would you call the roll, please?
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Jack Looney,
No.
Garland Land,
No.
Joe Zack,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
and Jerry Atkins.
Yes. Motion's passed. Any other business that needs to come before us from staff?
I have one issue.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Don't want to put Robert on the spot here, so what I'd like to do is add to the next agenda a report from the city on where are our spreadsheets, what we call the dashboard.
Yep.
We've been months and months and months requesting that. I'm not even sure we've gotten one during this year. So I'd like some honest response or product, one or the other. So we can deal with that at the next meeting.
Okay.
If you
It's a
so.
very important issue and long overdue.
Along those lines, 2 or 3 meetings ago, I had requested the year-end report, year-end financial report, and I thought they said that we would get that, and we haven't received that either.
Yeah, I apologize for that, but one of the advantages of this change is that Adam is also over the finance, oversees the finance department. So I think that might help getting finance reports here on a timely basis.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Adam's always got his head down writing. Dan, I don't want to leave you out today. I would like, if at all possible, and it's kosher, what our rates are for our wholesale customers. And do we rate them as cubic foot usage?
All the meters in the system are in 100 cubic foot.
Yes.
And wholesale, they're all out on the website. And I brought them in here the other day when I gave the update on the wholesales, how the wholesale calculations come about and what's involved in calculations and how the wholesale rates. That was all in that package, but I can bring them back.
It's in there? I failed to look at it then.
That's fine. I mean, I
Throwing
don't.
it back on me again.
No, it's all right.
You did that when I worked for you. All right. Then is that
If you're on the website, you can go
is there a calculation in there for what the sewer usage rate is?
No, that would be in water pollution. Lisa's right behind you, but water pollution control
Got to
would
be up there where she belongs.
Well, and the same thing, all of the rates are out on the web. You can pull them. Anybody can pull every rate that we have in the city are all available on the website.
Okay, I'll go there and get them. That's what I need. Okay?
They're easy to, and if you need any interpretation of those, we can, between Lisa and I, we'll be glad to give you that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. 7.23 gallons of water in a cubic foot?
7.48.
48. Okay.
You're
Thank
right
you.
there.
You stand corrected.
I'm correct.
Okay, any other comments from?
That's
the board members?
7.48 gallons in a 1 cubic foot, yeah.
Any other comments from the board members? Last chance.
I'll make a motion, we
There
adjourn.
we go.
Okay, second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.